Secrets from a Coach. Thrive and maximise your potential in the evolving workplace. Your weekly podcast with Debbie Green of Wishfish and Laura Thompson-Staveley of Phenomenal Training.
Ebs.
Law, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. They blink and you miss it. These weeks are hurtling by, aren't they?
They are going so super quick. It's like, how? Have we got enough time in the day to even get through what we think we can? And where is it going?
And it is such a common theme in pretty much every one-to-one and group interaction that we and the team are all having at the moment.
Yeah.
Which is why we thought this would be a really good time to focus on how do we maximise hybrid working. So how do you make it work? And we're going to look at 4 different aspects of it, all about how to maximise hybrid working and how do we ensure that we do it in a healthy way that is sustainable and sets us up for success, and we're not all limping and falling over within the next 3 to 5 years because we're running triple jobs.
Yeah.
So this first part is all about realistic time management for hybrid working. And Debs, this is one of your key phrases, isn't it?
It is actually realistic. You've got to be realistic when it comes to this. And we might have like real pipe dreams and the world is so lovely and everything's going to go to plan, and then reality hits and then you go, oh yeah. So always have your dreams and wishes and everything else, but bring it back into a sense of reality. Realistically, can I put together 3 proposals that are 20 pages long in half an hour? No. So it's that type of thing where you give a chance to stop and think, can I really do that? And then if not, readjust, set your boundaries, go back, communicate, whatever you need to do to be able to reset them so that you can achieve them in the time that you've got.
What about writing the book, Deb? Surely I was going to write a book before lunch as well as then.
Yeah, I forgot about that one. Yeah, write a book. What else could we go? Go for a walk. Yeah, make sure you eat properly. There is so much we try and cram into one day.
Do some meditation, have some exercise. All of this is just even eating correctly, is it?
Yeah, exactly.
Is the day job.
And if we're trying to fit it all in like we haven't given ourselves time or space or thought about what that even looks like, then realistically we're never going to do it.
No.
And then we beat ourselves up because we can't do it, and then we feel like we failed, and then that starts that negative talk going on, which is not healthy for anybody. So yeah.
And of course, if you're working hybridly, so we'll kind of do a few defining bits in a moment. If you're working hybridly, typically you're more likely to have screen time. If as part of that screen time, you are consuming social media is awash with people trying to get you to buy into their way of living your life. And I think it can add even more kind of noise in terms of all of those things that we're trying to cram in, which is why we really wanted to have a realistic, practical view at how do we make it work? Because we are the first generation of adults in the world of work who are trying out this big experiment in hybrid working.
Yeah.
And 3.5 years now it's kind of been in, and just a couple of stats so we can then sort of place it. So the ONS say that in 2023, so last year, 44% of people in the UK are doing some form of remote working. Globally, about 50 to 60% of people are working some form of remote. So let's just say there's a lot of hybrid working going on where I can do a bit in an office, sort of sitting there next to people, or maybe I'm the one person that's in, or I can dial in from any place, anywhere. And McKinsey have coined this phrase, productivity everywhere. And 58% of the highest performing companies that are in a period of growth say they have a productivity everywhere kind of concept. And although that sounds good, I did think that's quite a tiring way to view work, isn't it? Productivity everywhere.
Everywhere.
From the moment you wake up, every time you nip into the bathroom, I can be productive. And I'm just not sure humans are built to be so productive.
We're not
everywhere.
robots, are we, Law?
We're not robots. And even the robots need to power down, Debs.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. So, yeah, that is... I'd not heard that before, Law. So the fact you've just brought that in, that's like freaked me out a little bit, because I'm thinking, that's like stress, pressure, and we're just sitting here talking about it, let alone having that as our mantra. I'm just thinking,
I know. What should we be doing? Record a pod whilst doing the proposal, Debs.
Yes.
What are we doing with
That's
our
what I mean.
lives?
It feels like we're just generating. Well, I'm not sure if I like that.
Yeah, well, I'm sure shareholders like it, and
Yeah.
board, like the concept of productivity everywhere.
Yeah, makes sense.
I think we're in an interesting time, though, in our kind of society, because on the one hand, there's the aspiration of working hybridly, but the amount of people who are still dealing with Wi-Fi issues.
Yes.
So there's this kind of concept that's there, but there's then this kind of poor human behind the scenes that is holding all together all this kind of patchwork of various different variables. So we're going to be looking at what are some things that can help set us up for success rather than stitch us up for stress. And this particular focus on this episode is all about time management, but we are going to be looking at working well as a team, how to have productive team meetings when working hybrid, and what does that mean in terms of just generally having a remote based set of engagements that you're making every kind of moment count.
Nice.
So I think it's going to be an interesting one, because we can't ask our parents or our grandparents for advice.
That's true.
We are the elders that are trying to work it out and hopefully create a workspace and a working environment that ticks as many boxes as possible.
I like that.
So shall we have a bit of an explore? First off, let's have a discussion around some of the typical challenges that we're picking up, whether that is in the coaching room with you and the rest of our team, or whether that is kind of general kind of workshops where we're meeting lots of people. And then we'll have a look at some top tips, so some things that genuinely seem to help, that you can then think about what your own take of that is. Because in short, one size fits one. So there might be a book that you read and you think, God, that's completely changed my life. And whereas someone else might read it and it doesn't work for them. So one of the first things before we start looking at a bit of a set of tips, etc., is dialing up your level of self-awareness.
Yes.
What type of person are you around your relationship with time? Are you always trying to cram in too much? Are you kind of wittering away time and you're procrastinating? So I think sometimes just delving into actually, who am I? What's my relationship like with time? And where might there be an opportunity to maybe sort things out a little bit? Quick anecdote from this weekend, Debs.
Go on, Law.
So my I've got a newish laptop. It's basically the same as what I had before, but just 3 years on. And the email was playing around a little bit. So my husband said, when's the last time you powered it down? And I said, well, what do you mean? And he said, shut down. And I went, what, just put the lid down? He went, no, shut it down. And I went, October? And he went, what? And he said, you have to fully power it down. Otherwise things don't get a chance to clear and process out, and it all kind of gets a bit snarled up. And I thought, I think there's a parallel here. And it came from a good intention.
Right.
Yeah. And it came from a good intention of, I'm just midway through that, but I want to go and do something else. So I'll just put the lid down. And there were all these kind of unfinished tasks that had been building up and building up. And I now actually have a Post-it note on it that says power down at the end of the day.
Brilliant.
It clears all the systems out. Not only is that the PC, but that's also your brain as well.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, it was out of sight, out of mind. But it actually wasn't out of mind.
No.
So, I think we all kind of we can talk a good game about having life-work balance, but some of these little tiny habits. So that's going to be something I'm taking through to the year ahead.
That's really cool. I love that, Law. And that's interesting you've said that, because you're so right. It might be out of sight, but it's definitely not out of mind. Because if you've left all those things open and you've just shut the lid on your laptop, they will be playing in the back of your mind, regardless of what else you might be doing. And I just smile at that, because I do power down. So if I am working from home, I will literally, if I'm going to make some lunch, or I am going to go around and see my mum and check in on my mum and dad or something like that, I literally will turn the whole thing off. So, and then unplug the battery, the lot, it all gets powered down. And therefore if you like, have to save a document. So it is giving me more of a boundary or a structure to go, don't leave it unfinished. Either finish it or come back to it or whatever, but shut it all down as you go. So I very rarely have loads of documents open on the back of my screen, because my brain can't cope with that. So it's not out of mind.
And in old school world, you'd have left a physical office. Even now, everyone works digitally, even if you're physically in an office or you're running off an app, whatever type of role you've got.
Yeah.
When you step out of that building, there is a mental closing. I think for those
Yes.
of us working hybrid, and there are millions of people that are working hybrid,
Yeah.
it never goes. It's always there. And it's this kind of background ambient workload that
Yeah.
is just there getting kind of warmer and warmer.
Yeah.
And
It's your productivity everywhere, right?
productivity everywhere. Yeah. But in the meantime, it's like a plug socket point with a million plugs all crammed into one thing. It's not safe.
No, it isn't safe. And it's definitely not realistic. And that's the bit, isn't it, around how do we overcome some of those other challenges that creates? That's a massive one, Laura. And I'm glad that you are going to literally power down, because it will power you down as well and give you headspace.
So let's run through what are some of the things that as a coach we and as a facilitator that we're kind of seeing around us that can just give us some of those mirror moments about hybrid working and what it means to have realistic time management habits around that. So what you're seeing, Debs, what are some of the typical challenges 3-4 years into the big experiment with a quick flick into hybrid working? What are some of the behaviours and impacts you're seeing from a reference around how we manage time?
Yeah, I think the things that set up for me with regards to this is that having a lack of structure. Because, as you said, we don't leave the building at the end of the day. We're just going into the next room. So there is no structure, no boundary where we can have that in the office. So we therefore are not creating a daily schedule or routine that can sometimes help us, especially if we are in our home offices rather than our work offices. So that's one that we see a lot. And if with that lack of structure, then what happens, we found, is that people might experience a bit of feeling overwhelm or a little bit of burnout because their life work balance isn't necessarily where it could be. And therefore, they struggle to disconnect with the work because they're trying to do so much, trying to get it finished. I can stay here. I don't have to, I can sit in my pajamas and finish something off at 8 o'clock at night. So therefore, they're not looking after their self-care or creating space for relaxation, which will impact on their performance over time, because we don't want to be burnt out. But if we're always running and we're not stopping, if you like to unplug, then that's not going to be helpful for us. So they're sort of different things. So how do we build or help people build in a structure, regular breaks? How do they plan their day in a way that can help them? And I think the other thing that comes out is the procrastination one is an interesting one, because they have nobody watching. You have nobody there that's monitoring you. Only you are monitoring you, really. And unless you've set yourself some clear deadlines, or you've been going back to structure, if you've really been clear on your structure, then you're setting yourself and monitoring yourself rather than being distracted by things that are at home. And then obviously what's out of our control sometimes is the fact that, the schools, if you've got children at school, the schools might not be open. So therefore you might have had a plan, but that's just gone thrown out the window because suddenly your children might be at home working, or your other half has decided that they're not going to go into the office today, they're going to be working from home. So I think we have to adapt super quickly sometimes to the environments that we're working in and finding ourselves in. And they have a massive impact on how we feel, how we behave, how we perform. And therefore, there is no time structure. It just disappears. Either we've been super productive and hadn't eaten all day because we're just on a roll, or we've just put stuff off or left it or gone and watched the telly or scrolled through social media because there's no one watching. There's no accountability there.
Yeah. Always interesting for you thinking about that sort of been watching the Hawthorne effect. So that famous bit, I mean, it's nearly 100 years old now, but looking at human productivity and when people are being watched in the way that they work, they just work in a different way because you're being watched. I guess it's like the old 1800s panopticon, the way prisons were designed. If everyone feels like they're being watched, you behave differently. So if you're sitting there on your own and you're thinking, right, I've got 2 hours to write that proposal, I'll just put a wash on, or
Yeah.
I'll just tidy my desk. And they're all things that need to be done, but it's the when it happens
Yeah.
that might actually be using some of your real focus time that
Mm-hmm.
then focuses you. And then there you are at 8 o'clock in the evening doing stuff that really would have been more appropriate to do at a different time.
I think you're right. And therefore, you then might beat yourself up because you haven't done it, or you feel like you're trying to cram it all in and you maybe haven't done your best piece of work because you haven't given yourself the time to be able to really think it through. And yeah, we are slave to emails. And I know I was with a couple of people last week who were talking about email challenges and how many, because we're on all the time with email. And it was like, well, how many of us just see our notifications pop up, or it pings, or we have our email set up where the email comes to the front of your screen. And so therefore it's there waiting to be asked. I went, I don't do that. I don't know how people do that. But, and I went, my goodness. So they would answer that and therefore put off maybe the project they were working on, or maybe having time to just plan and think what the next 12 months might look like, because they're responding to emails all the time. And I know your stat, I can never remember it. So Laura, you have to remind us your stat of how many emails are sent every crazy minute. I mean, it's thousands and billions, isn't it?
Oh, it really
it's
is.
something stupid, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's something like 4.6 billion emails are sent on the servers every day,
which is mad.
Which arrives at about 44 million every minute. And they don't think we're at peak email yet either. So if we don't crack it now, it's only going to get more and more. I think it's huge. And it's just crazy, Debs, really, because I remember people moaning about email back in 2003.
Yeah, absolutely. We're having too many emails then.
No, we haven't really changed our model. We've just given workers different channels to add on top of email, like WhatsApp, Teams Messenger, all these types of stuff. So, yeah, I do think this is not only a solo skill of managing your time, but as we'll talk about with the team focus next week, it is also a bit of a team thing as well, because if we're all bombarding each other with messages, but it's because all of us are in that meeting.
Yeah,
then,
exactly.
We're just creating more and more kind of work. So there are a couple of things that I know, between us, are bits of content that when we cover it in sessions, just give people a starting point in terms of how they might approach it. So one size fits one. There's not one way that's going to work for everyone, but at least it gets you thinking about what might be your version of doing that. So should we do a little kind of review of some of the top things that can help from creating a structure?
Definitely.
Okay, so what works quite well whenever we're running time management sessions is first off, I'm always very honest about how you tend to be drawn to the content that secretly you need yourself.
Yes.
And for those people that find time management really easy, they're probably not very they probably don't find it very easy to explain to others some things that can help, because it's just part of their natural kind of skill set.
Who are those people? I'd like to meet them as well, Laura.
It's like people that keep naturally slim. All right. Right. I think there are fewer and fewer kind of people that might say that actually they find, and this is the thing, you might have found time management really quite an easy breeze before, but now you might have a different type of role, different type of responsibility. So at some point, life will give you these little pinch points and you have to think about how you might kind of do it. So that's why I always kind of start off with, you've got to work out a structure that works for you, but it's very tempting to think that there's a one way that works for everyone. But in short, I guess this is linking to what you were saying about having some sort of structure to give that sense of control over what you're doing. So if you've got a huge day of tasks that are back to back ahead, if you feel lost at the bottom of the mountain looking up at the top, that feels a bit overwhelming. If you've got a structure in mind, it enables you to almost imagine you're at the top looking back. So you've got that sort of capability feeling about it. And that is so determined by general wellness factors, isn't it? If you haven't slept enough, if you've got something snarling up your mind at the moment, it can really be quite an emotional connection we have to how well we're feeling we're managing our time. But here are some principles that can help. And I guess if you imagine a funnel, going for some big picture structure setting and then taking it to more kind of granular hour by hour. So at any time of year you can do this, but imagining your year as seasons. So you've got quarter 1, 2, 3 and 4. So 4 lots of 3-month batches. And this is where people might remind themselves of, when am I going to go on holiday? Where are going to
Yes.
be some things that are actually going to ensure me to feel like the things that are important in my life, I'm actually dedicating some time to. So rather than the 12 months whipping by and thinking, I haven't seen my best mate for ages, then it's putting some of those things kind of in advance. And some people like to have their diary full of stuff. Other people like the concept of space, whatever it works for you. But if all we've got is work, then that's then where it can start to reduce our kind of enjoyment about it.
Yeah.
So the first sort of structure is then not only from work, but also for personal as well. What are some big ticket items that you've got on a kind of a quarter by quarter? Are there some things that you can do now that then make it easier when you arrive at that point? So are there some things that I could work a little bit smarter? For example, if there's a big project kicking off in 6 months' time, what could I be doing in about 3 months' time to start create some relationships that then make it easier then? So
Nice.
that's your sort of your smart, being proactive.
Yep.
Then we kind of drill it down a little bit. So month by month, what might be your 6-box exercise?
Oh, we like 6-box. Yes.
So wheel of life, 6-box exercise, whatever you want to call it. It's what are the 6 big things that are really important in your life to give you the balance that you want. And month by month, what would a great month look like for you? And this isn't a to-do list. This is a remind myself that I want to kind of do this.
Yeah.
And then we get into week by week, and this is where 21 packets of time can help.
Oh,
Debs.
yes. 21 packets. We like that. I like that one.
So we get 21 meals a week. Even if you skip breakfast, there is a global concept of breakfast. Even if you work in multiple time zones, there is a sense of when we kind of eat, because that's what us humans have been doing for years and years. So 21 packets of time just gives you some way of structuring, particularly if you're hybrid. When am I on? When am I off? When am I start? And when am I end times?
Nice.
And then from a team point of view, I know we'll talk about this a lot next week, but the check-in and the check-out of a week, even that can mentally help set up and pack down.
Yeah.
And then granular. And this, I know, you and the rest of our team are so hot on this. So day by day or moment by moment, if you find yourself getting lost in stuff, it's then just bringing yourself back to what is it that I want to be doing in this moment? Is what I'm thinking logical, helpful, real?
Yeah.
Am I actually making a wise choice right now?
Yeah.
Spending time agonizing over what image I might use to put on a
Yes.
document when it's only me that's going to be looking at whether it was this picture or that picture. Are there actually more productive things I could be doing? Not so I can cram more stuff in, but so I can actually end the day on time when I said I
Yes.
was going to.
Yeah, I love that. So really what you're saying is if you can plan backwards to today, so you've gone out further out, like by the end of the day or the end of the quarter or the end of the month. So you've gone out to there already, and now you're saying that's your end, that's where you're heading. So then come back to the present moment and work out how you're going to get there.
Beautiful.
Love that.
Yeah. So what took me 1,000 words? Yeah.
No, I think it's
that in about-
brilliant. I think so. But all these little things, as you said,
Yeah.
one size, fits one. And it's if you can think, how am I going to use that to my advantage? Whether, I think it's such a good thing to consider. And it keeps it real as well. It keeps it realistic.
But I think the driver behind it, and this is where I think you've got to work out what type of person are you? What is the relationship you want with time? So I am notorious for being 5-6 minutes late on things. I know I am. However, I know what is important to me now to ensure that in 10 years' time, a big driver for me, Debs, is regret minimalisation.
Ah, okay.
Let's not get towards the twilight of our lives and look back and think, oh, I never really did the things I want to. So I'm really motivated by big picture stuff because feeling empowered is so key for me. I never want to feel like I am trapped or, there are obviously things we have to do that we don't really do. But if you're able to join the dots up and think, well, I might not want to do this task now, but I can see where it fits in.
Yeah.
And where I think it can be a bit of a dark place to get into is when you're busy and it just doesn't feel like it's got a point to it.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're
Good
busy, but deep down, it's all pointing you towards a direction that you want to get to. But that's my motivators, regret minimalisation. Let's not waste our time because it's so precious.
And it's so short. There's not, you're not here forever and ever. And I think that's where people come into, have those coaching conversations or mentor conversations because you're creating that pause for them. You're creating that moment in time for them to stop and pause and reflect on where they've been, but also are they still on track to where they want to go? And that headspace that people need to just stop rather than be on all the time. That's where you can add the value to having a great conversation with somebody about it, which then enables people to raise their self-awareness to their approach to time management. I don't look any further than probably the next 6 months to a year ahead. So I have looked further out though. I did say this to you, didn't I? Like, oh, do I really want to be working when I'm 73? I'm not sure. I have that in my head. So that's like 13 years from now. Am I going to be still working? And that's the first time in forever that I've thought that far out. That's all I've done. It's in the back of my head. So I now need to work backwards 13 years to today and work out my moments when I'm going to review whatever that might look like. But I think but again, looking at how self-aware you are towards that. Are you that big picture thinker, or are you that realistic thinker, like the now in the moment? And I know when we do insights profiling, that gives us a good indication as to whether we are those big picture blue sky thinkers who look to the future, or whether you are that in the moment, right here, right now individual. And I think that can help people just go, oh, that makes sense now, which is why I work in the now and work with realistic rather than look to the future. But if you understand that about yourself by having your insights profile done, then that can help you with managing your time more effectively and be realistic in that.
In a hybrid world where you've got to nudge yourself far more, because it might only be you that knows what you're doing with day by day, because there's no one else witnessing kind of,
no one's
side by
monitoring
side.
you type thing, which we said is one of the challenges around that. I love that.
So Debs, let's build it into some real realistic things. So if there were 5 or 6 top tips that you could share that are a way to set yourself up for success, could be something you want to use to help support someone else or run a team meeting that focuses on it. So what would your 5 or 6 top tips be, Debs, for realistic time management for hybrid workers?
I love this, Law. So realistic time management for me boils down to a couple of things. So if I run them through, and then we can maybe expand on a couple of them. So the first one is always about setting clear priorities. The second one for me is establishing the routine. It's then about communication. It's then how do you use technology wisely? And then how do you regularly review and adjust your day or week or month? And then lastly, how do you empower yourself to set some great boundaries for yourself?
Oh, Debs. So just scribbling down, say the S one again. I think we've got a little
clear priorities.
I think we've got an acronym.
Have we?
Anagram.
One of those things. One of those things.
Scarcity. I think this spells secure. So how do we secure ourselves with realistic time management for hybrid workers? So you're there, party of one, you're working hybridly. How do you secure yourself? So just run us through those top 6 again.
Oh my God, that's so cool. So set clear priorities, establish your routine, communicate around what you're doing, use technology wisely, regularly review and adjust, and then empower yourself to set boundaries.
Love it.
Oh my God, secure. I love that.
Fantastic.
Job done. Okay.
Which means you're more likely to feel psychologically safe. You've got your own structure that's around there. You're feeling secure. And if the world is wobbling around you, you've got that sense of focus in terms of what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I was just sort of reflecting on the word about realistic. So idealistic, which I think is where I can then tend to. So this idealistic viewpoint of what I'm able to achieve in that given amount of time. If there was no other world, then you probably could do it. The challenge is you're trying to do this stuff amongst a whole world of other things as well that is kind of going on.
Yeah, so very true.
Set those idealistic goals for yourself, absolutely, because that's the kind of, the big thing. But to be able to also appreciate there's a realistic element for managing time. So then it doesn't get demotivating, it doesn't knock the stuffing out you, and you still got the energy to then do it again, pull it out the bag and kind of sustain that way of working.
Yeah. Oh, I love that, Law. So tell me, therefore, what would be the share the secret from you?
Mine would be, after a little bit of self-awareness and analysis, get an accountability buddy.
Nice.
So get an accountability buddy, someone that you can run alongside with you if you're feeling a little bit kind of lost in this hybrid world. We know there are some permanent patterns to how we work. The experiment time, we've had years now of doing this. So just to set yourself up for success, get an accountability buddy, someone you trust who will hold you to account, you with them, and then you feel like you've got a running mate when you work in hybrid.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I suppose that also, I'm going to go a little bit more granular with my call to action, which is don't be a slave to the email. Turn it off. Literally turn it off. And just have chunks of time where you review it. That would be mine. Because otherwise, if we get distracted, emails are a great distraction for us, and then we get sent off and don't deliver and all that stuff. So for your own mind health, don't be a slave to the email.
Right, marvellous. Power down.
Power down.
Power down. Right, I'll let you know next week how it's gone.
Definitely. I look forward to that. I'm going to check in with you.
Brand new me, Debs. I'm going to do so much. No, I'm going to keep realistic.
Keep realistic. Yeah, keep it real, Law.
So I've loved this. Thank you. It's great when you can focus on something that actually you need yourself. So
yes, it
thanks,
is, isn't it? I
thanks
know.
As always. Every day is school
same.
day.
Every day's a school day. I've loved that.
Yeah. So maximising hybrid working. So this was part 1. Next week is all about maximising remote teamwork.
Nice.
This is such a hot topic. So whether you are part of a team, leading a team, whether you've got a job interview coming up and you want to gem up on some things, we will be looking at all things remote teamwork. How do you actually create that sense of belonging? Yeah. Loads of stats that we can then peer under the bonnet and talk through some practical applications. So can't wait for that.
Me too. I look forward to that. And keep powering down, Laura. I'm going to check in with you next week, but have a good one.
I'll send you 10 emails just to ping onto your screen when I've powered down. All right, bye.
Love you.
Love you.